Hello everyone, in this debate we will discuss the situation regarding EZLN movement and the implications of this. The participants on the debate will be represent of the indigenous communities, the states and international organizations. To get started, we will look back at the San Andres La Raizar Agreement and the constitutional reform.
Hello, I am representing the indigenous community. And first of all, we think that the San Andres La Raza agreement is a good advance, but it is not enough. Because this agreement is not done correctly, there are no consequences. If the agreement is not fulfilled, it seems just like empty words to satisfy the demands. It is important to be a constitutional, uh, and we want autonomy and self-determination within the framework of a United Nation. Because historically, indigenous communities and people have been discriminated in our daily life. People faces systematic and structural discrimination, having a big inequality of opportunities in corporations with other more favored classes. We experience exclusion, margination, and poverty.
We know that this agreement is not enough for our indigenous communities to live a rightful life. The deputy from the political party Morena, Guillermo Rafael Santiago Rodriguez, expressed this exact concern during the commemoration of the agreement. The Mexican state is in debt with our indigenous communities. It has denied their right to be recognized as subjects that deserve public recognition and protection of the Mexican law. We are fully aware that during previous years, the government has built different social programs. Nevertheless, we are aware this is not enough. That's why we are now open to start a dialogue between our indigenous communities and also open to modify the San Andres Agreement and more, in order to create a modern state in which cultural diversity is included and respected equally.
We think it is important the recognition that we live in a cohesive society where indigenous communities are a minority. There is not completely that are not completely included, and the importance of having a dialogue in order to allow solidarity. In addition, it's important that indigenous people have more presence and voice in order to reach agreements. Uh, where both parties agree and are satisfied, because we think many times our voice isn't respected and heard because of our culture.
In this next point, we will discuss the continuous demands by indigenous people for autonomy and how can the individual rights of the federation and the collective cultural rights enshrined in notions of custom and practice be guaranteed. It is clear that despite the multiple efforts of programs that intend to recognize indigenous communities as full citizens, the results are not clear nor significant. The National Council to Prevent Discrimination, CONAPRED, stated in its annual report in 2015 that government social programs dedicated to help these communities only attend 10% of the total population. The lack of effectiveness of our programs is clear, and we attribute this result to the lack of regulations of our own programs. More than 50% of programs do not count with rules nor indicators to monitor results. Therefore, the probability of them not being successful is high. That is why we propose to build up together a series of indicators and rules to monitor the results of the existing programs so that our resources are being fulfilled and communities' necessities are covered.
Yes, in these programs presented, one important program is the education of identity in our communities, like the program of intercultural bilingual education in Morelia that recognize and attends the cultural diversity, where the indigenous language is as important as Spanish, neither imposing on the other, favoring the strengthening of identifying. uh, However, also the education outside of our communities is uh, talking about the importance and the value of indigenous communities is something that is not very present. In order to eradicate the hate speech seen in our country that leads to discrimination towards to our communities, also, we have seen the actions taken by the government in the national program of indigenous people, where the recognition and respect of fundamental rights are being developed, and where many of our demands are being fulfilled. On paper, having the freedom of self-determination of our political, economic, social, and cultural development, the guarantee of our fundamental rights, and the participation. Now, with actions, the indicators proposed by the state and effective programs, we expect favorable results where our individuals and collective cultural rights are guaranteed.
To conclude this debate, we will talk about the main topic of this debate and the central question. How can a modern state be created to take into account and integrate cultural diversity while simultaneously recognizing equality and equity? The Mexican state has always worked alongside with the United Nations and is fully committed to make use of any of its declarations as guidance or implementation. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, protects and recognizes the existing differences in society. Article number 2 of the UNDRIP declares that indigenous peoples are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination. We are fully aware that despite our expressed concern in the San Andres La Raizar agreement and other government programs to stimulate the development of indigenous communities, we are not showing the results these communities desire or need. Therefore, we propose to implement a more direct and concise strategy that pushes all Mexico's institutions to hire and or perform business with indigenous communities in Mexico. The total percentage that institutions must fulfill is 15%. For example, they have to demonstrate that 15% of their personnel belongs to an indigenous community, or that 15% of their business transactions are being made with indigenous businesses. A combination of both can also be made, as long as 15% of their activity is related with indigenous communities. This proposal will boost indigenous communities' economy and assure a healthy merging of both Mexican roots towards helping and working for each other. In other words, the creation of a modern state that protects equality and equity will be pursued.
This proposal of having percentage representation in institutions is something that can lead to a more presence and representation of indigenous communities in public jobs, where positive changes can be made by someone that is from our community that know our problems, our opportunity areas, and also knowing how we learn better and proposing more real and achievable solutions. For all the above, it seems to us a very good proposal with which we agree and we will be ready to carry out. And I think that the integration of us in a bigger role that we currently have will lead us towards a more inclusive and equitable society.
As the state being the main representative of our citizens, we fully commit and assure this new reform will be beneficial for both parties. Also, we would like to highlight as a conclusion the two main actions resulting of this dialogue. First, the creation of rules and indicators for the existing programs dedicated to indigenous communities, for the sake of a rightful monitoring of results. And secondly, the creation of a 15% reform that demands Mexico's institutions to assure the participation of indigenous communities in Mexico's economic activities. We thank the representative for assisting to this dialogue and value all efforts being made for the indigenous communities. Thank you.